Jordan Breen joining us back here cage side. You had a chance to talk with Casey Olsen, and he mentioned coming back after a 2-year absence. This fight knocked the ring rust off. Did it knock the ring rust off enough to be competitive with Francisco Rivera for a title? And Francisco looked fantastic tonight.
At this point in time, I would have to favor Francisco Rivera because we saw how Cody Gibson was able to land strikes, and frankly, Francisco Rivera is not going to clinch up and try to play a wrestling game. He's going to try to land bombs and land them early. So I do favor Francisco Rivera. But this is exactly what we're talking about. We want to see a guy like Rivera who's rounding his game out, who's expanding what he can do as an MMA fighter. We want to see him against a guy who has that wrestling ability, who has that top position skill. So from a stylistic perspective, from the perspective of making both fighters better, well, we got to see if Casey Olsen's better than the guy who got knocked out by Olaf Alfonso. We got to see if Francisco Rivera is better than the guy who got tapped out by Eric Koch. So I think it's a really, really nice note to hit and an interesting stylistic clash as well from the time.
Absolutely, definitely looking forward to it. A lot of storylines coming out of here tonight in Lemoore. Let's go back to Bubba Jenkins, victorious tonight in his second pro fight. What's the upside on this kid? I mean, what's the future? I mean, how far do you think he can go? Are we talking about a possible future UFC champion?
Very possible. The way he flowed, his poise, his transitions, just did a fantastic job, especially for a guy who's had 2 fights. Just very smooth, very comfortable standing, didn't rush the takedown. You know, just very impressed with Bubba Jenkins.
How different was Bubba tonight than when he was here in December?
He looked pretty much the same, but we saw more of his game. We saw the startling accuracy of his punches and all of the rest. I think what's really, really incredible about Bubba Jenkins, though, is this time last year, he was preparing to go for an NCAA title.
Yeah.
That's where he was last year at this time. He was about 2 weeks away from it. So, I mean, we're talking about a guy that has basically been doing MMA for a matter of months and seeing the natural ability of the guard pass, and punching under the arm, the accuracy, as Javi mentioned, the efficiency, no wasted motion. I mean, with no wasted motion like that, you'd hate to think that he'd end up being a waste. I think he'll probably be an efficient prospect and definitely make his way to the octagon.
We talk about a prospect that shined tonight, a veteran signed tonight as well in Rob Emerson. How do you think Rob Emerson would do at 145 pounds?
Well, I mean, that always depends on Rob Emerson. I've said it for a lot of years. I've told him personally, I said, man, if you just pull the trigger, you're going to do it. But the problem is, will he be able to do it? It's never been a size thing with Robert Emerson. If you always notice, he's not getting blown out of the water, lopsided decisions. Every fight is very, very close. And like I said, I'd love to go back and look at his record and see how many of those fights he could have done 1 or 2 different things where he could have won.
Your thoughts on Rob Emerson's performance tonight over Savant Young?
I mean, 155 pounds is a good division. If Rob Emerson is clean, sober, fighting at 145, like I said, I don't think he's going to tear Jose Aldo up or be that guy, but there's no reason he can't earn his way back to the UFC and have that be where he fights most of his fights until the day he hangs those gloves up.
A fantastic night of fights for Javier Vasquez. Jordan Breen, I'm TJ DeSantis. Hopefully we'll see you next May right here in Lemoore for Tachi Palace Fights 13.